blank, check it out. I don't know. Okay, another question. Okay, for this one, I don't know, I literally don't know. And then for this one, can add or should anyone in a team, designer, developer, do research? Okay, so in Grab now, we are moving to the work process where designers will do usability testing. Because research team is small, I mean, it's quite big now, but compared to designers, it's still like small. And we cannot always do usability testing because it's just like too many, right? So what we do is we give usability testing training to the designers. So how we work will be, the researchers will do only like fundamental research and designers will do their own usability testing. So to answer, can and should anyone in the team, designers do research? Yes. But I think not to the point where it's fundamental, because doing fundamental research needs a lot of like understanding of the theory and everything. But usability testing is usually more on the like following some steps. So it's easier to be replicated with the designers. So in the UX workshop, if conflicting opinions occur between stakeholders, how to solve it? Okay, so this is a very good question because of course it happens, right? So it depends on the conflict. If the conflict is something that can be solved by looking to the OKR. So everyone at Grab, we are aware with our OKR. We have company OKR, we have department OKR, we have team OKR, we have like product OKR. So if the conflict is actually something that, if we do this, if we do A and B and compare what is out, it will benefit more to the more prioritized metrics in the OKR, then it's clear. We should follow those that will help us improve our OKR better. But sometimes there are conflicts that we don't know the answer. So, and the answer of it can be solved by asking the analytics to gather some data or another user research. In that case, we will do another user research. Yeah, I think that's all. Oh yeah, how do you plan your research with constraints on time and budget in mind? How do you evaluate research findings as valid as many noises from the environment? Okay, so first question, how do you plan your research with constraints and time and budget in mind? There's a very good question. So, as I said before, right, in Grab, in a product team, we work in quarterly basis. So, usually when a quarter is ending and we're moving to the next quarter, we will see the roadmap and the product vision. We call it tech charter. So basically, we find like the visions, and then this is the roadmap and features that we are planning to build. And again, we gather with the product managers, with designers, and maybe analysts, and then gather requests. Okay, what kind of research that we want to do, and then together in the room we discuss, we prioritize the research initiative. So it should be, and in that case, we always reject some of the research. We just cannot do everything. So research that, again, we have to go back to OKR. Which research that will impact the prioritized candidates the most? If your research is just like, I just want to know, it doesn't really have effect in the OKR, then definitely we will not do it. So it has to be linked to the OKR again. And how do you evaluate these research findings? How do you evaluate research findings as valid with many noises from the environment? So usually when we discuss about validity, it's usually people who is very like quantitative, right? Hey, but it is just like 5 users, 8 users. So I think there are 2 things in here. The first one is you have to follow their thinking process first, meaning that okay, let's try to quantify it. Let's do survey or let's do like data analytics stuff to triangulate the data. But actually, if we found out that after we are doing this triangulate thing, then usually the stakeholders will actually trust like the nature of qualitative research. So it's actually more on the stakeholders not understanding how qualitative research works, where they trust only to numbers. But again, I think by the time that we build bigger trust, usually it's not really an issue anymore. Yeah. that's all. Any other questions? Oh, what's the scope of your fundamental research in terms of location? Oh, this is a good questions. How do you overcome the language barriers? Okay, this is very technical, right? Okay, so Grab is launched in most of the countries in Southeast Asia, but we have again to prioritize the market, right? So usually the prioritized market it comes from the business. So the business will always have, okay, this is the market that we will launch, and it's prioritized because, for example, this product, the biggest market is Indonesia, this product, biggest market is Vietnam, for example. Then from that, if we can only do research in 2 markets, then we will do in Indonesia and Vietnam. So we have to prioritize based on the business. So usually the business owners, they already have like clear ideas. And how do we overcome language barriers? We use translator. So we have simultaneous translator that we have moderator and translator. So when moderator interview the users, the simultaneous translator will translate to me. Okay, which questions makes you laugh? The last one.
Last one.
Okay, I want to talk about Grab and Vietnam. I want to wow. Okay. Please do reach out to my LinkedIn. And we'll ask our vendor to contact you for research. Okay. Thank you. I see that there are more questions, but please do reach out to me through LinkedIn, for example. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi. So I have Yoel here. I will let you introduce yourself.
Cool. Thanks for the time. My name is Yoel. Oh, thank you. This is the 4th time I visited Vietnam. I love everything, the food. Only the one that I hated so much is when you cross the street. It's always making me like, oh, will I survive this? Will I survive this? I came to Vietnam 3 times. The first one I went to Hanoi, I think in 2017. I did a research on Seoul. Right? Did I say it right? And then I think in 2017, late September, I came twice to Ho Chi Minh to do a research too in driver earnings. I worked at Uber before because of you guys, and we left Vietnam. So now thanks to Bunny, I need to move back to Jakarta. But the topic that I will talk today is about one of the questions that was Bunny answers about how to build trust in your company so that you can do more research. Because all the things that Bunny said about doing fundamental research, they are so cool, but how many of you that in your company that ever done fundamental research? Can you raise your hand? So one. How about the rest? How many of you who usually do usability testing? Raise your hand. Okay, so there are more people who do usability testing, but it's very rare, or because of the resources, because of the time, that you cannot do a fundamental research. I will start with these stories. So last year, 2 years ago, when I did research in Ho Chi Minh, I met this person's name, I don't know how to pronounce it, like Duan Thi Thu Lien. And because of Lien, we found out, this is the time when I still work at Uber, that there is a misperception between what drivers manage to earn from Uber and their real earnings. So for example, Lien thought this one, that I will buy a 7-seater car so that I can drive Uber XL, so that I will earn much more money. But at the end, she needed to juggle between 3 jobs so that she can afford the car to pay the installment every month. He said at the end of the interview that what happening is enough. They said that I may need to sell the car. So the expectations and what she earns are actually very different. Because of Lien, then I share back all the insight to Uber, to the company. We also did a lot of analysis, and it turns out that for most drivers in Vietnam, they need to work around 70 hours per week. Maybe don't take picture of this. They need to work for 70 hours to be able to pay their car installments. And sometimes they don't think about the car maintenance, the tax, the depreciation of the car. So the report went viral. Even the general manager, the country manager of Vietnam, talked to me and said, "Hey, does it mean that we exploit drivers in Vietnam?" Sadly, yes. There was even one time where they saw like an internal lawyer at Uber, and he told me, "Hey, could you take down the report because they don't want to paint like a bad pictures about Uber in the US." But because of this, we made a lot of progress about drivers' life. What was interesting is like for this research. This one is like because of that research. Then a year after that, we made this program called Uber Pro, where we try to give more rewards to drivers, not only from their bonus or from earnings, but all of those additional things that they may not think about, like the car maintenance, car installs, car financings, the things that help them to make a right decision which car to buy before they want to drive at Uber, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, it didn't happen in Vietnam, but in other countries. But it was all thanks to Lian that finally drivers in other countries in Latin America got this program. So the question is like, when I did this research, it was like a long research. It took 4 researchers, a lot of direct studies, a long interview hours. I spent maybe like 3 weeks in Ho Chi Minh, following all of those drivers, just to know their earnings, know their expenses, following how they think about bonuses and everything. For example, like I look at how they did earnings, how they write their expenses. It was like a long study. But not every company has this luxury, right? Not every company has the luxury to send 4 researchers to do a research on driver earnings for 2 months. While most companies, they say, "Hey, where is the product? Where is the product? Where is the product? Where is the design? Where is the design? Where is the design?" So today I will try to give more like some practical tips how we can move step by step from a company that doesn't care anything about users, so until becoming a company where they will let you, like a person with a full-time salary, spend time to do research. I know the tips may not work for all companies, but this is just based on what I learned in my previous companies. Let's start with this. So, all of these activities, design experiments, collecting qual and quant data, analyze data, develop frameworks, share insights, and infer objects. This is not activities that are only done by UX teams, right? Usually the operation teams also does that, the data science teams does that, the marketing research does that, and the UX team does that. So what's the difference? If everyone does these activities, what's so different about us? What will be our main value that differentiates us as a design team to the other teams? My take on this is that we, as a design teams, need to focus more on the innovation part, so that other teams like the operations, the design, the market research, yes, they can focus more on before the launching of the product, during the launching, and a little bit after the launching. But we, as a design team, should focus more on this part, the innovation of the product. But the question is like, to do innovations, you cannot just do a usability study. You need to do that kind of long, kind of foundational study or fundamental study using Barry's terms. Like we spent 2 months in Vietnam just to find out what will be innovative products that we can launch for all drivers in the world. So, to answer this, I look at these methodology stages of org UX design by Jared School. There are 5 different steps how mature a company based on their UX design. Using this, I kind of try to make a simpler framework, but now using the user research practices. And then to make this, I just use the 4 companies where I worked before. So before going back to Indonesia, I worked in a company in Seattle called FTO, and I moved to Singapore in a company called Mobawala. I moved to Germany to work in Adidas, and then 2 years ago I moved to Uber. So from these 4 different companies where I work at, the maturity of the user research practice are different. So I will try to map those into like a simple frameworks, which are this. So I divide those 4 companies into this framework. The first one is a company where it's very user agnostic, and then a company where they use research just to evaluate product design. The next one, a company where they use research to inform product designs, and the last one is a company where they use research to generate product innovation and strategy. And so the next one, I will try to talk one by one how we move from a user agnostic company into a company where they can use user research to generate innovation and strategy. Let's start with the first one. So how we move from a company who doesn't care anything about users so that they can start doing research. What will be your guess? Oh, by the way, this is company where I work at the moment. So last year I moved back to Indonesia and work in a company called Bukalapak. Bukalapak is one of the 4 unicorns in Indonesia. Basically, it's an e-commerce. We sell everything from mutual funds to phone credits. Basically, sell everything. And then what I'm trying to do there is trying to move the culture from a user agnostic company into a more mature company where they will use research to generate strategy and innovation. So before I talk more specific, I will just go very quickly so that we are using the same terms. The first one is technical and foundational. Foundational research is the one where Bani mentioned about fundamental research. So usually it will take a long period of time. The insight will remain relevant for a longer time, and you will do it less frequently. Technical is like short period to answer a specific question, and you will do it frequently between the design sprints. Any guess what is the example of technical? What is the example of technical research? How about usability study? Is it a technical or foundational? Technical. How about daring study? Is it foundational or technical? It's more foundational. So you get it until this part? This usually only take like a short period of time and you do it more frequently. Another terms that I will use, these are all kind of methods that you can do when you are doing research. And most of these are foundational study methods where the technical is really on this part, like cognitive walkthrough, usability testing, eye tracking, and so on. So those are just the basics so that we will use the same terms later on. So let's start the first one. How to move from a company that is very user agnostic, so at least they will use research to evaluate their products. Any idea how to do this? What will be the cheapest method that we can use to make at least the company care about the users? What? I heard something, but usability testing, correct. So it's very simple. Start doing technical or evaluative study, like usability study, heuristic evaluations, surveys. Very cheap, but the ROI is very high. You spend 3 days doing usability studies, and the result is clear. Unless the comparison is doing 2 2-month study while you are not sure whether the findings can be actionable. But for usability study, it's very clear. You can see how the design changed because of your findings. So this is like which I think is very cheap, the ROI is very high. So if your company never do any research, this is the easiest one to sell to your boss. Hey, I spent 2 days doing usability study, go to one of the coffee shop, and then I get the result right away. The next one, this is for example what we did at Bukalapak. We do like this every quarters. It's very cheap method. We just do heuristic evaluations. So we audit all of our products and give them some recommendation back to the product teams. See, this is the example of those results of the very cheap but doable. If someone asks how much does it cost, 1 day, you go through all your products and give back the recommendation based on heuristics. The second one, which I think also very cheap, is to invite users to your office. We do that a lot. We call it fireside chat with users, fireside chat with drivers, fireside chats with merchants. Again, the cost is very low because what I mean by low is that when you want to do research, sometimes you want to go to the place so that you can get the context, bring engineers with you, bring PMs with you. But how about if the company hasn't believed yet in the power of user research? Then it will be very hard for them to somehow send their PMs or engineer to the field. So the only way that we can do, why don't we just bring the users to the office so that they can see how they use the products and they will see, okay, they say the product sucks, the product is shitty, the design is shitty, so they will hear it through their own ears how bad their products are. So that was the second thing, invite the users to your office. The third one is to do competitive analysis. I do not know why, but at least in Southeast Asia, people are so hooked about competitors. This is like one thing that you don't need to sell that much, people will just buy it. For example, if Grab or at the time, if I want to get more buy-in from my boss, and I'll just do competitor analysis about Grab, about Gojek, and then just tell them, hey, Grab does this, Grab does that, and then people just look into it. So this is another very cheap method to bring more people about doing research. This is another example that we did at Bukalapak. We compare, always do this quarterly or monthly, comparing our products with our competitors. Pro tips. These questions usually come a lot, right? When you do usability testing, they will always ask these questions. But how many participants do you test your product with? So the pro tips to somehow counter this argument, like you can always quote that Nielsen or whatever with 5 users is enough, but they still don't believe it, right? They say, oh yeah, this is just from one research paper. I still don't buy it. How come from 5 participant study I need to change my product? My trick, I got it from when I work at Germany, because you know Germans, right? They're obsessed about numbers. Okay? So what I do is I'll just use those research gimmicks like heat maps, eye tracking, videos, funnels, something that you will do whatever you can to make people interested to your research product, your research findings. Sometimes what I did is kind of a little bit tricky. For example, you know that to make a heat map result to be valid, you need at least 25 participants, right? But I just did it with 7 people. I don't care. As long as my finding from the usability studies, they buy it. Yeah, I mean, it's a borderline, but again, my objective is so that they will hear what my users say, right? So the second one, the pro tip is that after you do all of the stuff, you need to start increasing the visibility of your research. This is the tips that I heard from my manager at Uber. She said like this: "Hey Yoel, you are one of 70 researchers at Uber. Everyone can do conjoint analysis, everyone can do Gary study, everyone can do mixed methods, everyone can do triangulation. If you don't sell your research, no one will listen to you." I hate it so much when I heard that, because I mean that, hey, I'm a researcher. My job is just to do research. Why you ask me to sell my research findings? But there was truth in that sentence, that sometimes what is important is not the research, but before the research and after the research. So that's why it's very important for us to also sell our research findings. This is what we did at Bukalapak. So we send newsletter every month, and in that newsletter we will just show all kind of research that we have done in that month. We will just list all of our researchers, our designers, and then there will be like hundreds of pages of this kind of summary of the research that we've done. They will be like, what is the description, what is the goal, then they can explore more about the research findings, etc., etc. Small things, it should not be our job as a researchers, but we still need to do it. Because again, sometimes the important part is not doing the research, but before and after it. How you follow up, how you make it more visible to the stakeholders. And just another example of the newsletter that we did. So that's the first part. Very easy. The easiest part to start make your company care about research is to do evaluative research, with all of those gimmicks, tricks, basic things, so that people start being aware about the importance of doing research. So the next step, so how to move from that kind of company to be more mature, that research is not only about usability study, but it will be more deep than that. So let's about it. So the answer is this one. So you will start doing a foundational or generative study. But the trick is where to start. And usually foundational study is very expensive. It will take some time, it will take some resources. You don't know where to start. I have some tricks here, which usually we will mix technical and foundational study in one quarter. Don't forget, like the small circles are the technical study. These are the ones that the ROI is very high. This is what your PMs love, or I got the result right away. So you still need to do it. But then, behind their back, you can always plan your foundational study. Maybe start by using 20% of your time to do those foundational study. And then after the result is good, then you start to sell that findings and then have more time to do foundational study. But remember, even in a big company like Grab or Uber, they still do this technical study. Although we all hate for doing it. I hate it so much. Of course, as a researcher, I love to do more like deep study, foundational study, but this is a necessity that we still need to afford to do this technical study. Another good thing when you want to do more foundational study is to make a working group with data teams. Especially in Asia, there's a trend, or more like our weakness, that we like numbers more than qualitative data, right? So by working closely with data teams, then we can get more buy-in from our stakeholders. This is an example of a research that we usually do at Bukalapak. The interesting thing is here, usually we do research not only by the design, but it's a combined project between the data teams and the research team. So that's why you will be more powerful. The result will be more actionable. For example, this is the example of the thing that they did about articles. The third one. So remember the first picture where this one, that you still need to do technical study while you need to do foundational study to it. This one is what I hate it the most. I hate doing usability study. Like, why? I need to do this all the time. I want to do this. I want to meet the drivers. I want to meet the sellers. I want to deep dive more about them. But this is still necessary, right? So that's why I need to make research more scalable. What does it mean? For example, when I work at Uber, I was a senior researcher covering all Asia Pacific. It means around 11 countries, and there was only me there. And there was still a request for me to do usability study in Vietnam, or in Jakarta, or in Singapore. So then my objective is how to make the research to be more scalable. So what I did is, I sent email to all the country managers, and I asked them, hey, could you give me one person, doesn't need to be a full-timer, it can be an intern, it can be like customer service, and I will teach them how to do usability study. So every time I need to do a usability study, I will ask them to do it for me. So then I have 11 minions in every country once, and they will just do usability study. And it's very easy to teach usability study, right? Because it's like very task-oriented, it's step by step, and then so that you can focus more of your time to do more foundational study, and they can take care of the usability study. That's what we do at Bukalapak too. So we have a team called Scalable Research that basically just interns. We pay them like really good money, and what they do just usability study every day. It's a small thing, but it works because then you as a researcher can focus more on big bold bad stuff than just usability study. Sometimes we think that research can only be done by researchers, but I think there is a value of make research to be more democratized, like to be more scalable, so that everyone can help you to do it. Another tips: when you do not know how to start doing foundational study, this is a simple formula: interview, survey, interview, and survey. So you go diverts, you go converts, diverts, and converts again. It's very cheap. Like you can use 7 participants for interviews, and then do 1 survey, and then you can start your foundational study from there. The question is, how many people that you need to interview for an interview? Idea? 11, 10, 20, 5? You can start with 5. At Uber, usually our rule of thumb is 7 per cohort or per type of users, which is enough for you to do a qualitative study per cohort too. How about survey? How many people we need to send? For example, if you want to do research for drivers in Ho Chi Minh, 10%, 20%, 20%. So if there is 20,000 drivers in Ho Chi Minh, we need to ask 4,000 of them to get a statistically valid survey result. Other ideas? The answer is 400. This is a golden number. You can check in the internet how to count a survey samples with a 95% confidence rate and 5% margin errors. You only need around 380 something of the survey participants. So these methods are the cheapest one when you want to start doing a foundational study. Do interview, survey, and then you get more result from there. So, for example, this is what I did in Vietnam. We talk about the same thing at the time. We want to know how drivers perceive earnings and what kind of influence that influence their expectation. So to get this result, where do they get the expectation from? I get it from interview or survey. If I want to know what kind of factors influencing their expectations, should I do interviews or should I do surveys?
Survey.
I do. It can be both, but at the time I choose interview first, so I can see the patterns. right? So I have the patterns, or they manage their expectation by this, and this. And then to validate that, which one that is more influential for them, then I do a survey. I give this option to them and ask them to choose which one that is the most dominant for you. And then from there, I can make a framework. This is an example how you combine interview, survey, to start your foundational study. Pro tip: there is no representative users in divergent research. This is the question that usually I ask when I interview for interns. I ask them, if you want to do an interview, what kind of users that you will invite? And if they say, we will invite representative users, then no, this is not a valid person. Why? Why there is no representative users in a qualitative survey, or in a qualitative study, sorry? Any ideas? Why there is no representative users in a qualitative study? Because it's impossible for you to be representative by only inviting 7 people. Right? If you have like those normal distribution, it's impossible you can fill the representative users by just inviting 7 people. So usually when you do qualitative study, then you will focus on the extreme users. So that from those extreme users, you can find the needs in the middle. But we will talk, I will not deep dive on that, but basically this is the common mistake when they think about divergent research. I mentioned about this before. Another thing, after you do all of those research, again, I will reiterate that visibility is important, so that you can ask for more budget next year. Okay? Doing that research, you need to follow up, let's say, to the overall company. Hey, this is a cool stuff that you need to listen to or you need to read to. For example, this is what we did at Bukalapak. We create a social media account where we just post kind of like a Human of New York style, where we just post a picture of our users with some insight, and then everyone in the company can read those tidbit kind of insight. We also create like a social media account where people can just follow internally, and then they will see those feed every day about their users. We also make a lot of this kind of posters in the company so that just bring the users closer to them. I will skip this, but basically at this point you will start to build like research operations team. You can search more about what does it mean by research operations. Sorry, I will just go very quickly. So the last step, after the research becoming more mature, what we will do to make it to generate product innovation? The first one, for sure, more foundational studies and deliver immersive exposure. So now, this is the time we can invite those people to join your research, because you already get some buy-in from them. Another important thing, this is a video what we did about immersive, but I'll skip it. This is one. You have a different kind of term about this. There's a term called pathfinding, or trend forecaster, or innovation team. But basically, remember, at the beginning, usually you have a studio kind of model of researchers. So these researchers help those different product teams. And then you grow your research team so that your research team are dedicated to each product team, like what Bunny has in AdGrad. But then, the problem with this model is all of these researchers work in silo for one particular product. No one can see from the bird's eye view what will be the next innovation that we should make. What will be the landscape? How can we beat the competitors in 1 year? So many more companies now start making this team where they take out these researchers back to the studio cultures while still keep some of them in the product teams. In Facebook they call it pathfinding teams, at Uber they call it innovation team. at Twitter they call it plan forecaster team. Basically, they are the one who will think much more ahead about what we should build in the future, because they will be not working silo about one particular product. Another method that usually you use in this stage is doing analytics research. What does it mean by analytics research? Like this. When you do a horizontal study, usually you have one very specific task. Let's say if you want to know how people share stuff in Instagram, then you will go to the extreme users, right? We go to Vietnam and see people who share the most, or we go to Jakarta, people who share the most. But sometimes this method is not enough. You need more inspirations to know what will be the next in 1 year. That's why people do analytics research. What does it mean? It's like you do research that is totally unrelated with your topics. For example, if you want to do a research on sharing, you just don't go to people who share things on Instagram. For example, you want to know the activity of people sharing Insta stories or Insta feed. What is the difference between stories and feed? Stories is temporary, right? Feed is permanent. So we try to find what is similar activities between these two. Maybe for something that is very permanent, sharing stuff permanent, I will go to tattoo artist, right? Because you will share something permanent in your body. To know more about Insta stories, I will go to graffiti painters, because it's something temporary. So you try to find inspirations from similar activities, but not particularly about your products. That's where you can know more about your inspiration or innovation, what will you do next. For example, if you want to do research on super app, instead of go to China, research on Taobao, Alipay, WeChat, we will go to super mall. There's like super app, right? People go to one place and they can do everything. From grocery shopping, cut their hair, have a haircut, doing massage and everything. And then we try to get information, innovation, inspiration from their activities. Again, it's very expensive because it's very hard from those activities we can find something actionable. But that's what people usually do in this stage. And the last one, be clear with your research roadmap. At this time, you have the luxury to really decide what kind of research that you want to do. This is what I do at Bukalapak, so that they need to differentiate between whether that research will impact the product or features, or that research will impact the strategy. Will we do it only one time, or we will do it ongoing, in an ongoing basis? So from this, you can know and you can map the resources to the right part. Not everything needs to be on this part, where you just do one time or product. There is something that you need to do on ongoing, but more on the strategy roadmap things, or ongoing on the product things, and then you just combine them to make research to be really impactful to the company. I will end up with this quote from Brent Brown. This is something really similar to what Bani said about trust. That trust is a product of vulnerability that grows over time and requires work, attention, and full engagement. Trust is not the grand gesture that we think it is. It's a growing collection of small choices that we make every day. So to grow that company from a very user agnostic thinking to a company that really treats research to be valuable, impactful, resourceful, then it's a combination of those small choices, small acts that you will need to do to gain that trust. So there is no like one silver bullet. Oh, if we do 3 months for research study by working with IDEO, suddenly my company will give yay to this user research. It will never happen. It's like small gestures that we do so that we can improve the trust, we can get trust from our stakeholders to believe the power of research. So I think that's all. That's my last slide.
Thank you. I think you have one question. So bring the water.
Oh, that's a question. Can you share some tips on recruiting participants, especially in an environment that doesn't really have a research culture like Vietnam? If your team is already big, like for example, I have 27 researchers in my team, then you need to build that thing called research operations. Their main job is to support the work of the researchers, especially to recruit the participants. But if you still don't have that big research team yet, usually I will ask the help of the customer service team. So that's what I did when I did the research in Vietnam. I will find this customer service and I give them, hey, these are the kind of profiles that I will need, and they will just call those drivers one by one, asking them to come. If you have more resources, then go to market agency. You usually pay around 2 million dong to 5 million dong for one participant. So they will find this participant and bring it to your office. But the cheapest one is, of course, ask those customer service to find it for you. So that was what I did when I did research in Finland. I noticed that many things you share are relevant to my psychology background. Do you have any advice for a psychology student who wants to pursue UX research? The easiest part is to find your first internship. I think in this region, it's easier to go into this field than if you are in the US, for example. When I work at Uber, I have like an opening for UX researcher to help me for 2 years, and still no one applied. Or if someone applied, the profile is not that good. So I think the hiring bar is much lower in this region because the field is not that mature yet. So I will suggest you to start with an internship, or if you are a designer, then do research as a part-time basis. I think in this region there are more openings for designers and researchers. So I think the only way for you to swap is to be a designer first, and while you be a designer, do more research so that you have more portfolio to be a full-time researcher. That's what I did. When I was in Singapore, I was a full-time designer, but I think at the time I loved doing research more than design. So while I was a designer, I kind of wrap up my portfolio of doing research so that I can apply as a full-time researcher after that gig as a designer. Number 3, do you think which skills the UX product team members should learn from market researchers to conduct your research by themselves? Very easy. The art of asking questions. I think that is very key because in all of those methods that you see, almost all of them will require you to ask questions. So when you know how to ask questions or moderate like in an interview session, it will be very useful. I remember that when I was at Uber, usually we have training once every 6 months. Even most of the researchers are already PhD, they work 7 years, 8 years in Google or whatever, but still in those trainings, they will still teach us how to ask questions. I remember in one training, they say, okay, as a warming up, pair up with your friend, and then start to ask questions, how is your sexual activities? And then we need to really know how to ask those sensitive things. But I think that's very important. That's from my point of view. Can you expand on your comment about interviewing external users to find representative needs? I think, let me try to draw this. So, this is the normal distribution, right? And you have all the representative users here. This is where usually you send your surveys. and then you can make it valid because, yeah, it's very easy to get 400 people on this round. But when you want to do qualitative study, it's very hard to fill this because this may be like 1,000 people. So what we do is we focus on this part. This is what we call extreme users. So why we focus on extreme users? There are several reasons. For example, like this. First, people always do not know what they do. That's the basic things. If you ask people why Grab drivers react on bonus, you can ask them, but they will never know what is the real reasons why they react to the bonus. Right? By focusing on the extreme users, there is a higher likely chance that they know what they're doing. Because, for example, people who order 5 times food delivery in 1 week, and if you compare it with people who order 20 times of food delivery, most likely these people are more conscious than the people who order 5 times a week. So that's why we want to focus on this one. That's the first reason. The second reason, this behavior is usually our objective. We want to make people to order 20 times. So that's why if we can cater their needs, somehow the rest will be catered too. Because that is the objective of the behavior they want to reach. The other thing is, if you focus on the other extremes, for example, people who hate food delivery, then we will find out their pain points more than people in this part. So that's why we always want to focus on the extreme users. Unless you have all the time in the world or resource in the world, so you can do this, but most likely we don't. Right?
Thank you. I think we run out of time.
Sorry about that.
If you still have questions, you can ask directly after this. Now we will have the tea break for 30 minutes. After that, we will come back to the conference.